Cameron,
Petra,
hi. Can you
hello.
hear me well?
I can hear you perfectly well. Yes.
Good.
Am
How are
I
you?
coming through loud and clear? I'm fine. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. So, are
Good.
you in the UK?
Yes, I'm in a place called Wendover, which is about maybe 60 kilometers outside of London,
Oh,
northwest
okay.
from London. Yeah.
I see. I used to live in Windsor.
Ah, okay. So not so far away
Yeah.
from Windsor. Right. But when
Oh,
did you live
okay.
there?
Um, 2009, I think. So 2015.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
Yes,
And how did
yes.
you end up in Windsor of all places?
Well, I just thought if it's good enough for the Queen, it's good enough for me.
That's fair enough. So you're in Vienna.
Yes, I'm in Vienna.
Oh, you lucky
Yeah,
thing.
since
One of my favorite places to
2015.
be. Yeah.
Oh, really? Have you been here?
Yeah, lots of times. I absolutely love Vienna.
Okay.
Um, yeah, it's a great place. It's just, music coming out of its pores.
I know it's
It's
it's really there's just something magic about this city.
yeah.
Yeah. But you have a Scottish accent and you were born in Scotland.
I was born in Edinburgh, yes, and I was brought
Okay.
up there. And
Okay.
I did the usual thing of moving to London to study, and
Okay.
and then the gravitational pull of London is such that you can't ever leave. So,
Yeah, yeah.
um, I mean, it's probably exactly the same for Austrian musicians in Vienna, is that they all
Mm.
gravitate towards Vienna and then never escape.
Well, I must say that's something that really I didn't realize when I photographed all the artists here, um, that from all over the world they seem to come here to study and then stay, or
Yeah,
just want to be here, and so that was for me very fascinating to see how many international musicians and well, artists, ballet dancers, and so on. They are all here. Yeah. So
yeah,
there's something about the city, I think, that attracts a lot of artists.
yeah. I think that's right, and I think it's
Yeah.
because it's obvious that it gets taken very seriously. I mean, it is absolutely core to people's
Mm,
being. You can sense
mm,
it. Music is important to people. Art is important to people there.
yeah.
Architecture is important to people there. There's a reason that so many of those amazing movements sprung up from the place in at the beginning of the 20th century, and I think
Yeah.
that vibrancy is still there in many ways.
Mm, yeah. But tell me, how did you start in music?
I did. I started as a drummer,
Yeah.
and in the Highlands when I was living in Aberdeen,
Mm,
and we were very lucky, of course, to get free music lessons.
mm,
So although I mean my family was reasonably musical, but none of
mm.
them took it seriously.
Oh,
They
okay.
didn't play
Yeah.
any instruments, so I
Mm,
was I was sort of trying something new, as it were. And then I
mm,
just found that it grabbed my attention like nothing else.
mm,
And I decided eventually that the only thing I could do was to study this and to become a professional.
mm. But now, when I'm asking these questions from a very uninformed blonde person, um, now when you start with percussion, your first my first thought is drum,
Yeah,
but percussion is also xylophone and all that. So, but you started playing the drums.
I started playing the drums and I started playing
Yeah.
in bands at school, and then was spotted by someone in Aberdeen who have you heard of Evelyn Glennie?
No.
She's okay. She's a really famous one of the, she was the first big name percussion soloist,
Mm,
and she just happened to be around. I was lucky enough to be around in Aberdeen at the same time as her, and
mm,
so there was a group that got taken out of the schools who were supposed to be the the best of the percussionists
mm,
around, and we were turned into an ensemble, and we started to do tours and make recordings and all of these kind of things. And she was the lead player in that. I mean, I just sat back. There were about six of us, and she was incredible. I mean, she's really inspiring, and she's a very inspiring person now. I mean, it turns out, in fact, that she is partially deaf. So she did all of
oh.
these things, these amazing
Mm,
things, whilst actually relying on feeling vibrations rather
mm,
than being able to hear perfectly. So, she's the kind of inspiring character, and she's gone on to international fame
mm,
as a soloist, doing all this stuff. And so we came up together through this process.
mm,
And so I then started learning tuned instruments and how to play all of the all of the other things that go with it. And then got hit completely like being hit by a train,
mm,
hearing some music by Janacek, and it was from the House of the Dead was the piece, the opera that he wrote from the Dostoevsky, and I just thought this was the most amazing thing I'd ever heard. So I thought I have to write music. I have to be part of. I need to somehow be involved with this sound. So I turned my attention more to orchestral
okay.
music and
Mm.
started studying that, which was great because it saved me from being a lawyer.
Oh, okay.
So I had a place to go and study law, and I just went in the other direction and went to study
Oh,
music
okay.
instead.
And your parents, were they supportive all the way?
Oh yeah, no, they were fantastic. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they're really very supportive. They
Mm.
didn't really understand what I was doing or why, but they
Yeah.
just let me do it, so that was fine.
And okay, so and you composing and you're also a conductor.
Yeah, mostly
Yeah, and
my
that
own music that I end up conducting, in fact. But
conducting, yeah. And the conducting, did that come because you were composing and you wanted to conduct it yourself?
yeah, I mean, it came while I was at the Guildhall in
Mm,
London. It came from there where I was just being asked to conduct various little ensembles, and so
mm,
people would turn to me and say, "Would you like to do it?" And of course, I would
mm,
take every opportunity I could. And then I started really conducting my own music because people would ask me to do it that way.
mm. Oh,
It
okay.
seemed to
Yeah.
that to be the way around that it would work. I
Mm,
would have a commission, and if it needed a conductor, they would ask if I would like to do it. And I very much enjoy doing that, is working with other musicians. So
mm.
it was a good opportunity.
Okay. And now about lockdown.
Yeah.
Um, Britain had a bit of a different approach to lockdown than the rest of the world.
Yes, a
I think
very
it took
bad one, I
longer.
would say. Yeah,
Pardon? What?
a very bad one, I would
Oh,
say.
yeah.
It's been
Um,
terrible.
yeah. So how did that affect you? When did your lockdown started in May, I think, is it?
Yes, that's right. But already from March, we were
Mm,
starting to have cancellations. So work that should have been happening in May and then June, July, etc., just
mm.
immediately got cancelled because I think
Can
people
I
could
just
see how
interrupt
it
you
was
there?
going. Yeah,
These cancellations, were they in Britain or were they already from outside?
both.
From the rest of, oh, both.
Yeah,
Okay.
both. Yeah, yeah. So the cancellation started actually before Britain had locked down.
Mm,
So I think people were promoters and festivals were looking outside and
Oh,
seeing
okay.
what was coming, really, I think was
Mm.
the main thing. So quite early on, we were already being told that things weren't going to happen, and that was obviously a bit of a shock.
Mm.
And it
Did you have
wasn't.
big projects that got cancelled?
Yes, yes, yes. There were a few things. A season of opera got cancelled, and but the main project that I've been working on, there's been a project called Over Lunan, which is going to be a big site-specific theatre and sound work,
Mm.
and also
Mm.
using actors and singers and some elements of architectural design as well, which was meant to be based on a beach on the east coast of Scotland for
Mm.
the yeah, it was a big festival happening. And they immediately, of course, said that that wasn't happening. So, despite the
Mm.
fact that we'd been up there and we'd spent a week working with the creative team and we'd all been starting to produce work in preparation for the performances that were going to happen in May, June,
Mm.
suddenly that had to stop. And we actually decided to reimagine it instead of being physical, as actually using it as time to make something different but related. So
Oh,
we've actually
okay.
turned it into a radio play,
Oh, okay.
which we're
Yeah.
which we're hoping will be finished by this June.
Mm. Well,
So
you're
that's been
not
a slight.
ever going to do it visual
Well,
as
yeah, well, we will, which is
yeah.
interesting because what's happened is that having to reimagine the entire project
Mm.
as an audio project, as a radio play, or even a sort of experimental soundscape radio play, has meant that we've changed our ideas about the theatre piece
Oh,
quite
okay.
dramatically. So it's actually
Mm.
changed the entire project. And in fact, we've got dates in the book. It's going to be the first 2 weeks in September that we will be on the beach
Oh,
performing this
okay.
live.
Mm.
So, unless we have another disaster, but who knows? So
Yeah.
so that was kind of an interesting process in a way because it made us rethink the whole work, and something else, something quite different, will come out at the end of it because we were ready to perform it for last June, July, and
Mm.
ready to get it running in May, and that couldn't happen. So yeah, it's been an interesting process trying to
Mm.
rethink things.
And then uh, from that time, from May, so that was your project that you then started working on. Was that just an instant thing? Okay, we're changing direction now, or did it take
It
you a while to get your head over what's happening?
it took a little while to work out
Mm.
whether because what we didn't know at the time is how long the thing was going to last.
Mm.
And again, looking around the world, it seemed fairly obvious that other governments were being somewhat more sensible about their promises. And I'm afraid our prime minister was so useless that he claimed it would be all over by Easter, then all
Mm.
over by the summer, then Christmas will be fine, and now we still have no idea what's going on.
Mm.
So there was a sense that we didn't really know whether we could suddenly spring back into action. And the festival, the Arbroath Festival, also didn't really know. People were always kind of thinking, well, we need to be ready to spring into action because things could
Mm.
open up. And in fact, that's what we did with Glyndebourne because I was meant to have been doing a big chunk of work with them from September to December,
Mm.
and they said, okay, quite late on, I think maybe in August, they said, right, this is not going to happen, this work, but we're going to try and fit in when we can some weeks of something else. So there will be some work for you to do. So we were able to do a week's worth of opera
Mm.
down at Glyndebourne. That was amazing, but no more. but they'd done it really well. Lots of socially distanced audience, and audience were wearing masks, and the singers were all being tested, and all of that kind of thing. So, but we had to very quickly. So it
mm,
wasn't a kind of production that we would normally have done. So it was this whole sort of slightly limbic state, this state of
mm.
not quite knowing whether things were going to happen or not. Yeah, you just had to be prepared to move with it.
Yeah, I kind of hear that a lot. Like this first stage was sort of, oh well, okay, we'll sit it out a bit. You know, some people say
Yeah,
like, okay, 3 weeks, okay, I'm just going to make it a little holiday. And
yeah,
then of course they realize that it's not going to be just 3 weeks, and then came this numbness. So this what now? And then
yeah,
it's amazing how people just jumped in and started doing and you know, doing things, and you see a lot of creative work coming actually out of this
yeah,
this time, you know, differently done than it was, but it's almost as if they decided to be creative and decided to do something. And I find also with a lot of artists forming ensembles and collaborating and doing things like that. So um, it, I think it's the way artists function. You know, this is
yeah.
what's
It is.
so
I mean,
interesting for me. Yeah.
it is
Mm,
really interesting. I mean
yeah.
that because what you do as an outside observer of those things, I suppose, being a
Mm,
solitary camera holding observer,
mm,
means that your interaction with those things is quite subjective,
mm,
objective. I'm sorry. You know, it becomes a much more
yeah.
objective eye, I guess.
Yeah, because also I don't know the music industry, and I didn't know the people of the industry.
Yeah.
And I remember I photographed a couple in a window, and the next minute, a few other faces popped out the window next to them, and they say, "Oh, we actually you photographed." And so I photographed one of the uh, artists a few weeks before, but that was when they started. That was a little ensemble that formed and well, that started, and they were rehearsing that day that I took this picture. And this is what then suddenly I became aware of how many people that I photographed. Then I see, oh, but they are now working together, or they are doing something
Ah,
together. So
yes.
yeah, so and that's it, like you say, it's because I'm always the outsider looking in,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's fascinating. Yeah, absolutely. I've met the most incredible people, and yeah, very inspiring. Um, but okay, so then but you kept on going with this, and you say that what you said now is very interesting is how you managed to do the opera um, with the masks and the audience being very cooperative. That I've
Mm.
also heard before, how cooperative the audiences are, and then also the theaters, how much they are willing to do to make it possible.
Yeah. I think there's a
Yeah.
tremendous willingness, and that's been really exciting, and
Mm.
particularly Glyndebourne. I mean, I think they've stood outside the rest of the how would I describe them as being the kind of state-sponsored art
Oh,
institutions
okay.
that haven't
Mm.
done so well, and because they're just seem to be a little more entrepreneurial, and they went to the minister in
Mm.
charge of culture and said, "Come down and see the measures that we're taking to make sure that this is safe, so that we can have people to have an experience of live theatre again together." And he eventually did come because they have some clout, obviously. Whereas
Mm.
other venues, other organisations weren't really doing that. They were just sort of meekly accepting that this couldn't happen.
Mm,
and then pouring all of their efforts into online things.
mm,
So it was kind of interesting having been in on both sides. One side trying to do an online or at least a radio version of something that should have been live, and
yeah,
then also seeing the other side of it, which is trying to make live happen in a very different
yeah,
atmosphere, in a very different set of under a very different set of conditions.
yeah. But something interesting you mentioned now is that the minister, was it the Minister of Health that went to
No, it
the
was the Minister of Culture.
oh, culture. Okay.
Yeah,
So this means that when the Minister of Culture had some insight, he understood that it can be possible.
yeah, yeah,
Mm,
absolutely. It made a tremendous difference, which is
mm,
amazing that they got him down there in the first place, and also amazing to me, given that I know who he is, that he listened. So
mm,
very powerful arguments were demonstrated, and was shown to be made possible. So I think other
mm,
companies benefited from that too, because all that information was shared around quite freely. So other
mm.
little things have started to happen.
But you see, this is what I was thinking is that um, with me, it's a question of I really had to photograph 400 artists to understand the artists. Well, probably I don't understand everything, but there I have some things that I understand now. And many I think many of this situation or much of the situation that you are in now could also be a matter of that the politicians don't understand, or that they don't get that there is a solution. And
Yeah,
I think the artists are underestimated, because I think your brains are in such a way developed that you find solutions. And this is what you are just proving now, that you had this piece that you just completely turned around and made it audio instead of visual. Um, so that was a solution. So I'm sure if I don't know if it's naive to think this, but I think if politicians could listen to the artists to see what solutions there could be to open the theaters again, or to let audiences come again, so that the performances could carry on.
mm.
Do you think
I
so?
think I completely agree, and I think because that is the nature of creativity. I mean, that's what you do when you photograph something. You're looking at it creatively in a very different frame from someone who just sees it casually. And when
Mm,
you're trying to make a piece of work, you're always thinking around problems. You're not and you're trying to solve problems, because that's what
mm,
creativity does. Of
mm,
course, you know that, and
yeah.
it's yeah, I absolutely agree. They need to talk to us more, and it's been frustrating that we've had a lot of silence and stonewalling
Mm,
from them. But there are little signs that they're beginning to hear us. I mean, of course, we
mm.
have, we have this massive, also this huge trauma of Brexit as well happening at the same
I
time,
heard, yeah.
which is
I mean,
just
I heard the effect on
awful.
on the artist. Yeah.
Yeah. So, we've participated in various debates with MPs, and there's been committee hearings that I've followed online, and listened to what they have to say. And so there are people that are listening to us,
Mm,
but then when it gets to the Home Office level, they're just saying no. So there's a lot of things to be done to break down
mm,
the simple statement of saying no, that's not compatible with our new policy,
mm.
to be able to say yes, but you know you're
Yeah.
talking about billions of revenue and people's livelihoods. I've spent my entire career touring in Europe. That's what I've done
Mm,
as a
mm,
European, and
mm,
it's suddenly to have that taken away from you. It's absolutely horrendous. I think another thing that lockdown and COVID has done is it's masked those problems,
mm,
because nobody can move. But the minute we can all start to move, that's going to feel really problematic, even more problematic
mm.
than it is at the moment. So that's yet another kind of trauma that's that's been visited upon us against our will that we'll have to find a creative solution to.
Mm. Yeah, that actually I also heard from a British artist saying that now it's also the visa. I think it's a visa that you have to pay for apart from your airline tickets and your,
Mm.
so the cost is just also going up, and it's just making it that more difficult to move
Yeah,
around.
yeah, that's right. And
Um,
lots of the little things that I would have done. I mean, I have a duo where we work with a bespoke marimba. It's a great big wooden thing that's
mm.
actually made out of some old hospital doors.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's a mad, huge
Mm,
instrument, and we were going to be playing a big festival in Slovenia
mm,
last September that
mm,
obviously got cancelled for all the same reasons. But having worked out how much it would cost to freight the instrument there, that was going to be expensive enough, but it was
mm,
still worth doing. But now the freight costs, the carnet, the cabotage
mm,
costs. You're just traveling across all those different countries to get the instrument there for the gig. It's just not going to be possible
mm,
unless we can find a solution to this. So yeah, it's going to be really really difficult, and
mm,
and COVID's lockdown is just masking the issue at the moment.
mm. So I think it's also the idea why I'm also talking to artists is like things like this that you're talking about now, is that you don't realize these things. You don't realize that when you go to the concerts, um, that all these little things add up, and it's not just the cost. It's the logistics of it. It's not just
Mm,
you're a musician and you arrive. You know,
yeah,
it's just that all the things that accumulate.
yeah.
And I'm very interested in this um, um, the path. The like the artists you see on stage, and I've seen the artists in their windows and at their homes, and of course I was invited and had lovely talks. Um, and it's interesting for me that I've never been aware of this, and I've never been aware of the amount of study that a musician, for example, the amount of years that you study, and it's never ending.
Yeah.
I say never ending because it's like an opera singer. Every time has to study a new role or a new part. It's a study. Um, and yeah, and it's something I think we don't talk about enough, because I think if the artists don't feel valued, um, because that's a lot of talk about them not feeling valued because of the compensation they get, or because of the fact that the theaters stay closed and there's nothing happening around there. And I'm thinking if we understood what artists, the amount of time that artists spend investing in themselves or in their art, if that would make us more aware, or the non-artists aware of the value, of
It's an
art.
interesting point, and I'm not sure how I feel about it. I think it's interesting because there's a certainly in this country with our particular horrible brand of government, there's a
Mm.
tendency to want to put a value on everything, a financial value on everything.
Mm.
And so
No, I'm not
they want
talking about
so
financial
that
value as such.
no, no,
Yeah.
no, but it raises the question of how you value those things.
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah,
And
yeah,
what we haven't developed is exactly as you're
yeah.
talking about. We haven't developed a language to be able
Yeah.
to talk about how we value anything if it
Mm.
doesn't have a price tag. And
Oh, I
that's,
see what you mean. Yeah,
you see what I
yeah,
mean? It's really probably because
yeah,
our government
yeah.
is now even talking about trying to place a value on the environment.
Mm.
which I think is equally crazy.
Yeah.
And it in a way for me it's the same problem. Is
Mm.
trying to talk about value in a way that people don't think about price.
Oh, I see.
And it
Now, what
you
I
see
mean
some
mm,
sorry,
what I
go
mean
on.
sorry, what I mean in this sense is that, for example, the value of music, um, say in brain development, in health, that they could actually see the effect of music on our cells in our body, that they see the effect of music on brain development. Yet music, and it's not just music. If you go to all the disciplines, if you go to dancing, for example, and you start seeing what dancing does in the brain,
Mm,
um, and you think, yet none of our children, I know the schools in England, they have art, you have art schools and you have art programs in schools, but what I'm talking about is when children enter the school, that uh, on the same level as that they learn or get taught maths and science, art should be alongside.
yeah, I agree totally.
Not to make artists out of, well, I think inherently we are all artists, but what
Yeah,
I'm saying is not to make professional musicians or professional dancers of everybody, but to first of all install the appreciation for it, um, and just uh, in a physical aspect to have that opportunity to develop in that way. Um, and then I also think that when there are situations like this where decisions have to be made, what is now more important also then economically, then it would also, uh, well, economically on the one hand, but also on the other hand, um, for us, for health reasons, there should be uh, art institutions now open, especially now in this
yeah,
pandemic.
yeah, I agree. I think that's absolutely right, and it's a powerful argument that people have been making for many years and doesn't seem to gain any traction anywhere politically. There's an interesting thing, and I must find out more about it. The City of Birmingham Symphony Orchestra has
Mm,
just started a school.
mm.
So they've just taken over because you're allowed to make free schools if you have enough teachers, and so you don't
Oh,
have
okay.
to follow
Yeah.
the national curriculum that the government sets down if you've taken so far. So this orchestra has just set up a school where it's just a normal school, but music is going to be at the center of the curriculum,
Mm.
which is really
Amazing.
interesting.
Mm.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
And I'd love to. It's only just started. It may not even have opened yet, but it's
Mm.
exactly the kind of thing that you were talking about, and
Yes.
it's where all the humanities need to be. They need to be
Mm. Mm.
absolutely, just
Yeah.
like the Renaissance learning. That's
Yeah.
you need to do all of those things in order to understand them. Um,
Yeah.
and it's a real shame that we've lost that
Mm.
somehow in the West, and particularly here, I think.
Yeah. I was telling somebody the other day that my parents used to sing when they socialized, when they got together with their friends, and I can remember it as a
Hmm.
child. Um, okay, at the end of the night, they probably had a few glasses of wine, but somebody could still play the piano. But
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
they sang, they were singing. That was
yeah.
that was something that they did always, and it's I just thought about that a while ago, that actually we don't do that anymore. We
Mm.
actually don't sing that much,
No,
or
that's
people don't
true.
sing that much anymore. Yeah,
Yeah,
in social circumstances that I'm talking about now. Yeah,
yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's absolutely right. It's a pity
yeah,
because it's one of the great ways to bond with other people, other human beings.
yeah, yeah,
It's a shame. But that's, I mean, this is again what you kind of hope somehow, that we won't just go back to life as normal after this. That
Mm,
you know, in my most naive self, I like to think that maybe after this things might be slightly different. I mean, it
mm,
ought to be a way of remaking certain things. You know, maybe people
yeah.
won't be going off to do long commutes into London to go and work. Maybe they'll work a little bit more from home and then have time
Mm,
to go out and do other things around their neighborhood, and you know, maybe involving themselves in music or other kind of artistic activities, another way of doing that.
mm. I was going to ask you what your wish was, and is this what you wish for, that something
Well,
like that happens? Yeah.
yeah, it would be a wish that people would actually remember what they've been missing and what it
Mm,
feels like not to have it. Because that's what's happened this year, you know, and lots of people, certainly lots of people that I've spoken to, and strangers as well as friends, have just missed that human connection of
mm,
a shared experience. And that really is what playing live is about, what being in a live
mm.
theatre or doing it in a concert hall. It's about that shared experience, and no amount of Netflix is going to give you that. It's not
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
it doesn't come close. And people, I think there will be finally a huge explosion of pent up desire for live experiences. And I think, you know, we should, in this time next year, be very busy fulfilling those needs
Okay.
and our needs for to be able to get out there and communicate with people, you know.
Yeah.
So that's
It's
my hope.
wonderful that you say that you think that there will be this explosion. I'm always asking everybody, do they think people, audiences will be really hungry for live performances?
And do people generally say they think they are, or
No, they
are they
say, yeah,
sure?
you're actually one of the few people who say they think that
Oh,
there
that's
will be an
interesting.
explosion. Yeah, yeah,
Ah, that's really interesting.
yeah.
Maybe I'm just a very, very naive optimist then, but
Well,
it's possible.
I'm stationed on cloud nine, so I'm with you on that one.
That's a good place to be.
I'm the
I,
one.
I mean, I just think, you know,
Yeah.
having spoken to a few of the audience members that
Mm,
came to some of the gigs that we did during that tiny gap in November, where, you know,
mm.
in between lockdown one and
Yeah.
lockdown two, or was it two and three? I can't remember. Memory's gone.
Mm,
They just were so excited to be back in the theatre, and the tickets were, we could have sold three times as many, but because we had to do socially
oh
distanced,
yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, every other two rows empty, then, you know, audience, there was a kind of excitement built up about the fact that actually I tried to go and I couldn't go because the tickets were
Mm,
already sold out. So there's that I think there is definitely a desire there for people to have the shared experience and to be back in the theatre and
mm,
experiencing these things live. And recordings just doesn't do it. I mean, recordings are
mm,
wonderful, but to be in the room surrounded by that sound, to feel the sound inside your body is
mm.
just, you know, I think people are ready for that, to go back to it.
And
And whether we've managed to.
I also hear artists say when the first after the first lockdown, when they did something like a concert or something, that feeling, or some say that they felt really emotional
Yeah,
to do it again.
yes.
Yeah,
Oh, absolutely. When we got together, the orchestra got together for the first time, for the first rehearsal, most of us were in tears, just hearing
really.
our colleagues play again. I mean, even though they
Mm,
were, you know, 3 meters away, and it was all very different in a huge
mm,
room, masks, it was incredibly moving because suddenly you were there doing your thing, experiencing the sound for real, and not just looking at each other over a computer screen, and
Mm.
it was incredibly emotional. It was, yeah, we all felt quite taken aback by how emotional it was. I
Oh,
think some of us
really?
were quite surprised.
Mm.
I
Do
think
you think?
because it
No,
is
carry on.
so much part of your being.
Mm.
I mean, you give everything of yourself. You don't, you don't just turn up and bang a nail into a piece of wood, and that's your job. It's you actually have to give of yourself so much, and you give to the people around you too. There's a real connection there. And I think we possibly, take it for granted a little bit when you're able to do it all the time and having done it for so long. And then when we weren't able to do it, we suddenly got back together. That kind of emotional weight
Mm.
was lifted, and it was amazing.
Do you think there's more now? I know amongst musicians there are this unit, sort of this a community feel. But do you think now this is stronger um, because
It's
of
interesting.
the?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think it possibly is. I think it has
Mm.
strengthened our sense that we're not alone, that we are
Mm.
actually part of a wider community out there that has the same aims and interests at heart. I think as a
Mm.
freelancer, particularly, I mean, you
Mm.
work on your own a lot, I imagine. So being the sole
Yeah.
photographer, there's no photography orchestras. So that
No, that doesn't happen. Yeah.
no,
Yeah,
it's a
but
very different.
I don't see myself as an artist. I just see myself as being at the right time, at the right place,
It's interesting.
with a
Yeah,
camera. That's all.
yeah, it's interesting.
But it's actually a conductor who mentioned this to me, even through seeing the project also.
Yeah,
Um, but that there's also a lot of competition between artists or
of
musicians.
course.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
know in dancing that's also so. Although there's a community feel, but there's also a little bit of competition. And I wonder if that boundary now has gone away. That it's more this unity feel than really competition, or maybe a healthier competition feeling.
yeah, perhaps. I don't think the competition will ever go away. I mean, we are all
Okay,
still just
yeah,
hating to
it's
be
just in
heard
you.
and to do our thing.
Yeah.
So I think, but yeah, I do agree. I think there is much more of a sense that we're in this together, and
Mm,
that I've spoken to people that recently that I haven't ever engaged with before, despite the
mm.
fact that we've been in the same
Interesting.
profession for 30
Yeah.
years. And and it's been, yeah, so there has definitely been that. And I think it's also partly, to go back to Brexit again, because we have this stupidity hanging over us.
Oh, yeah.
We've had to organize. So we've had to organize in order to get government support. I mean, there are still about 3 million people that haven't had anything at all. So we've had to
Mm,
organize ourselves to put delegations to government, and also for Brexit. And also there are things going on with the streaming issues with being paid by Spotify and all those kind of things that we've had to organize. So there have been more collective groups coming
okay.
together where our voices have actually been used, rather than just using
Mm,
like the musicians union or a
mm,
single entity to represent everybody. It's actually been lots of individuals getting together to make a point.
mm,
And I think that will carry on. So I think that sense of unity in that respect has
mm,
been served by these
mm,
lockdowns.
mm. Um, you are involved in you are at the Royal College of Music teaching?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And the students, how did they um, find this whole time? How did you teach and
It's been incredibly difficult because, of course, all
mm,
teaching had to go online.
mm.
I was able to very early on to get a special dispensation to go in and teach at college because
Oh,
we're
okay.
using large instruments,
Mm,
lots of timpani and marimbas and all those kind of things where that you
mm,
wouldn't necessarily have access to at home. But even that had to stop. I think we
mm,
managed maybe 4 or 5 sessions before we had to go back online again. So I think for the students it's been really difficult because
mm,
you're not able to give them a subtle an experience. You can't, because
mm,
the sound quality is not so good. It doesn't matter how good their microphones are. You can't really see their physicality properly in the round. So sorting little things out about the way they play is not necessarily so easy. So it's been difficult in that respect. But then again, what we've done is try to turn it round and say, okay, so what are the positives we can take from this?
mm.
So we've been doing a lot of recording. We've been getting them to video themselves playing and getting them used to organizing themselves in that way. And so
Mm,
we've done other things and
mm.
made other connections with other departments in working with the brass department and working with the singers. So we've been able to do lots of cross collaborations
Oh, okay. Yeah.
online that we wouldn't normally have time for
Mm,
in the course of a normal week. So again, we've tried to make the best of it. We've tried to
mm.
think creatively around the problem. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I can't wait to get back into the room.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, of course. And for that contact also. But
Yeah,
what I also hear a lot is um, people talk about their teachers. When they start telling me about how they started in music, and I always let them mention the teacher because I think it's good for the teacher to have their name mentioned. But there's always a teacher or a few teachers, um, and I've also spoken to a mezzo soprano, and she said that her teacher sort of motivated her and helped her to just make sense of it and just to get a routine going again.
yeah,
And this is something amazing for me about the music and the art, is that the teachers play such a great role, not just in teaching the subject, but also the mental side of it, and also this encouraging and motivating. Um, did you find it also there that you at times had to do a bit of motivating or encouragement and
yeah. I mean
just
that.
mm.
Sorry, you were going to
No,
say.
no, that's all. Yeah. Mm,
I'm cutting in. Um,
yeah.
yes, I mean certainly. I mean a lot of music teaching is about psychology anyway.
Mm,
So you're quite often dealing with how another person views what they're doing and the quality of what they're doing and how to improve on that without destroying their personality, without
mm,
destroying encroaching on the personality that they bring to it anyway. So there's a lot of psychology involved in trying to nurture these people anyway, to become individuals and to allow their voice to flourish, particularly with singers actually. And it was interesting at the beginning that where we were first of all feeling our way and trying to do a normal lesson
mm.
on Zoom. And of course, it doesn't work because that connection isn't there. So a lot more of it has become about getting them to do it for themselves. And so I mean, I try to do that anyway. This idea
Mm.
that I'm trying to get them to solve the problems, not coming to me to solve the problems
Yeah,
for
yeah.
them, but to get them to work out how to do it for themselves so that they can apply it to a specific issue and then apply it to everything else, to apply it generally. So it became more about that than working
Mm.
on specific repertoire. So it has changed it a little bit in that way. But I mean, it is always anyway about
Mm.
nurturing the individual. So,
Yeah.
particularly any teacher who's working with a singer,
Mm.
because your voice is inside you, your
Oh yeah.
instrument is
Yeah.
you, your
Mm.
body. You have to approach it that way, and
Mm.
there's no external force to be controlled. So it's
Mm.
pure psychology, quite often, those kind
Mm.
of things. So yes, I mean it has, but I think what's been really good and really encouraging is that all of the students have said that they really value the time that they have, even though it's on Zoom and
Oh,
at a
okay. Yeah.
but it's still valued because
Mm.
they're given a space to do what they really want to do, and still
Mm.
given help to do it. So although it is frustrating, obviously not being able to deal with the sound in the room and to deal with the person to make that connection.
Mm.
It's been more difficult with the new students. The ones that I knew before,
Oh,
it was
okay. Yeah.
much easier because there was already a rapport set up. But there have been
Mm.
one or two people that I haven't even met yet, which is very odd.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I've only met them through the computer screen, which is very
Mm.
strange. But even there, I think
Mm.
they do value it, and it is all about nurturing them anyway, I think.
Yeah. It's also here at MDV, what I also did, we don't think about this, but it's this, the students who graduated in this time, and then they have this feeling because some of them had to have auditions after the summer, and that couldn't happen. And then it was that transition time where I think it's usually an exciting time, or a bit, entering this new phase, and they didn't have that.
Yeah,
And I think, I wonder also how many of them then questioned, what is the future for them.
I'm sure a lot of them did.
Did you find that as well?
Yeah, and I have a couple that were wanting to go on and do further studies elsewhere,
Mm.
and began to question what would be the point? Why would I bother to do that?
Mm.
So, you had to talk through, this is not permanent. It's going to be it's a
Mm.
hiatus. You need to try and do other things in the meantime and work on other
Mm.
things. Any success of any career like
Mm.
that is entirely predicated on the creativity of the person who's taking it forwards. You need to,
Yeah.
gone are the days. I mean, it may still be the case in Austria and Germany, to a lesser extent in America and France, where you leave and join an orchestra and that's it. You never
Mm.
do anything else. That's never really been the case here. It's always
Mm.
been much more freelance based. So you have to be creative and to think of the portfolio career. And so eventually, having spoken about all that, he seemed convinced that in fact there may be a future in it. But yeah, I mean, it certainly has caused one
Mm.
or two people to question whether this is the right thing.
Mm.
And you can see it's very difficult.
Mm.
Like the Glyndebourne thing, we run a scheme where we audition lots of young people who are just graduating to come and
Mm.
play with the orchestra, to be paid a professional fee to join the orchestra for that year.
Wonderful. Mm.
So it really just gives them a head start.
Mm.
So we'd gone through all that audition process in March, early March, just before we all locked
Oh,
down.
okay. Yeah.
And then, of course, they never got the opportunity. So,
Oh, oh yeah.
because it didn't happen. So
Oh,
it's been
that's
a
so
real shame
sad.
for them, where
Yeah. Yeah.
they had this huge opportunity taken away from
Mm.
about 15 of them. So yeah,
Mm.
it's been really difficult for those people just graduated. I think they have to be quite
Mm.
resilient to keep
Yeah.
going.
I have this theory, and this might also sound as if it's coming from Cloud9, but but you can tell me you can tell me what you think of my theory. And I actually said it to many of the young, I say little, the young students, that when we were talking about this thing, where are they going now, or what is the future for them. But I have this theory that they will be the ones that now start a direction in the industry, because they are really at rock bottom. They are really at the starting point. So whatever their initiatives now are going to be, that are going to be forced on them through this period, are going to be a new movement, or a movement in music. So it can either be that they were supposed to, like you say, join orchestras, but now they can't because the opportunities are not there, and that they will figure out something with their creative minds to do. And we will see something from the young musicians, something fresh and new.
I think that's absolutely right. I really, really agree with that quite strongly, because there's nothing like being forced into a situation to make you creative, and this is
Yeah.
what's happened. We can't make things the way we used to make them, and what will come out of that is something different. It's like Stravinsky suddenly discovering that they didn't have the budget for a huge orchestra, so he writes The Soldier's Tale, which with a tiny ensemble, which suddenly becomes the model for so many new pieces for the next 70 years. So things have always happened like that, haven't they? That people have to adapt to circumstances, and something new and exciting comes from it. I think you're absolutely right. I think that will happen, and I know a lot of younger musicians who are experimenting with lots of electronics and to delay and feedback loops and computer generated things in order to be able to play and have responsive technology to be able to play and make different things. Yeah, I think there's a lot of exciting stuff that's going to happen. I think a lot of people will establish a different relationship to the visual image as well, I think. And start, I know again a lot of people are beginning to work on the marrying of different visual images and music, but being driven from a musical side rather than a visual side. So
Yeah.
yeah, I agree. I think lots of new things will come from this.
I just spoken this afternoon to a conductor who said that she thinks also that smaller, say quartets or duos will also start doing smaller concerts with smaller groups. So everything will become a little bit smaller than, and people will be more organizing their own things than be
Yes,
dependent on big concert halls. um, and that would also now start creating a new sort of trend in smaller orchestras, smaller audience groups. Um, what do you think about that?
I'm sure that's already happening. I think, isn't it?
Mm,
Because one of the responses that the big orchestras have had is to fracture their orchestras and turn them into smaller chamber groups. So, like the London
mm,
Philharmonic or the Philharmonia have done online concerts, but with
mm,
very few players.
mm,
And I think that's inevitable. I think that what I would like to hope, again, being a
mm,
naive optimist,
mm,
and also as somebody who, at the beginning of his career, spent 20 years touring the world with Mahler symphonies.
mm,
These are just the most astonishingly enormous pieces of music, and
mm,
they just thrill me to the point of,
mm,
yeah, wanting to jump up and down. To think that that would disappear is really upsetting. And
Oh, is it?
yeah, I hope that we can. I hope that we could do both. That one isn't going
Yeah,
to replace the other. I
yeah,
hope
yeah.
that what will, again, optimistic, naive,
Mm.
that perhaps that we could just use these smaller ensembles and it would reach a different audience that
Yeah.
would then come to the bigger things.
Yes, yes. But
I
that's what
hope.
I think. Yeah.
Yeah,
This is why I think these young artists who now in the summer played in the streets that they normally didn't, and in the parks here. Um, I got very excited when I saw that, because I think it also connects with a different audience, that it
yeah,
makes people. I think these things sit in your subconscious mind. That's what you hear, and it triggers, and it will, next thing you see, or next time you hear something, and it uh, it draws you, and I think the small connection will draw audiences to the bigger houses, the bigger concert halls.
yeah.
Yeah,
I hope so. I hope so because
yeah,
it would be, yeah, it would be tragic if that were to be lost. I mean, I think it wouldn't be lost. It would just become more problematically elitist because there would
mm,
be fewer events happening, so ticket prices would go up, and it means that normal people wouldn't be able to go and experience them, and
mm,
that would be
mm,
a terrible shame.
mm,
I mean, I know that orchestras and ensembles and lots of musicians in this country for many years and have already been going and taking chamber music out into different spaces, libraries, hospitals, care homes. I mean,
mm,
and this now I think happens all over the world, that people will take these things out into different environments to try
mm,
and it's not really trying to find a different audience. It's actually just for
mm,
that single moment in time to play to
mm.
different people. And in a way,
Yeah,
it's important that that happens. It's not really about recruiting a new audience for the bigger concert
mm,
halls. But I mean, maybe some people will. Maybe they'll have
mm,
their interest piqued by hearing some things. But it is,
mm,
yeah. I mean, I think that again, it's another positive that could come.
mm.
That these little new ensembles can move in different audiences and
Yeah,
gain new followers, I
yeah.
suppose.
Now I want to ask you something, um, just because I'm so interested to know, what did you do something else except work during lockdown? Was there a time where you really had something, just something that you never ever done before and you had time for? Bake a bread or a cake or any hobby?
Literally, literally nothing because
Oh, okay.
I had to be a school teacher for my children.
Oh,
So
okay. You
I have
homeschooled. Yeah.
I've got three girls, and
Yeah.
one of them is at secondary school. She was absolutely fine. Her school was
Mm,
great. They did online school. They sent her lots of work. She's really happy. She just gets on with it. The other two who are at 11, the
yeah.
twins, are they need a lot of help.
Mm,
So I've just found that most of my time has been taken up with
homeschooling.
being a school teacher.
Okay. Okay. I get
So
that. Yeah.
yeah, so all of those things that I know my friends are doing, like making sourdough bread and the endless. This is the new trope of the lockdown, isn't it? Um, and running or
Huh?
learning. I really wanted to learn German properly finally, and
Oh,
I
okay.
just there just hasn't been time, and I really
Okay.
feel that it's been a wasted opportunity. But I have had to be a school teacher.
Well, here's a baritone in Vienna who bought chickens, and he started a chicken pen. So yeah,
Brilliant. That's
and I think so
wonderful.
too. That's really for me the ultimate. And he gave me six eggs when I went to photograph him.
Fantastic. Well, that's brilliant
He's
because
my
that's just
absolute
something
hero. What?
so different. It's so different, and
I
yeah,
know.
and wonderfully productive as well.
I
Yeah, I know,
know.
and I
Yeah.
know I have friends who have started gardening businesses. They're now doing gardening
Oh, yeah.
for other people or
Mm,
garden design. People
mm,
have been doing all sorts of
mm,
interesting things that I guess they've always wanted to do. I mean, I think had I had the time,
mm.
then I think it's pretty clear that I wouldn't have written any more music
Oh,
because you
okay.
need.
Okay. Yeah.
I think one of the things that I have learned is that
Mm.
in order to write, you have to be with people. You have to have
Oh,
feedback.
okay. Oh,
So,
really?
so you lock yourself, well, certainly for me, because it's about
Mm,
social interaction and it's about imagining how people would interact in that
mm.
space. And if you're not having those interactions, it doesn't really work for me. I know a lot of
Oh, I
people who would
see.
say exactly the opposite, that it's been
Mm,
great, they've just been writing lots and lots. But yeah, I mean, partly because of the school day and being exhausted.
mm,
Um, it's just
mm.
not really worked like that for me. But I think if I had the time, I would have done, I don't know, made some techno music or something, done something really
Oh,
different.
oh, okay. Okay. Now I know homeschooling because I homeschooled my children in England. So
Oh,
up to the
wow.
age of 13, yeah. And then my
Goodness.
daughter went to the Royal Ballet School. And
Yeah.
then a few years later, my son went as well. So
Wow.
I homeschooled them until 13, and then the ballet school had to deal with them.
Well, I
Uh,
completely take my hat off to you, and it's an
no,
amazing achievement to have got through that.
no, it wasn't too bad. I mean, they do argue a lot, and especially Suzanne, she always asked me why she had to do maths. So it was always a bit of a uh,
That's been
um,
my one major achievement.
yeah.
My twins now love algebra.
Oh, really?
I've taught them how to love algebra. I'm
Oh,
so
wow.
happy. I can't begin to tell you.
Well, I take my hat off for you.
They hated maths beforehand, so we worked really hard to prove to them
Oh,
that they could do it, and it was entirely comprehensible.
amazing.
So yeah, that's been my big achievement is making them love algebra.
That's amazing. But that's a great achievement. Yeah, no,
I
when
did know. I feel very pleased about that.
yeah,
And
because
it
it's
has been. It's been a wonderful time, and I'm sure that when you were homeschooling your two as well, that you did actually have time where you felt that this was exactly where you wanted to be and exactly what you wanted
mm,
to be doing, because it's such a great time to spend with people who are going to disappear in 5 years.
yeah. Now I also have twins. I have
Oh, really?
yeah, I have and they Suzanne, she's 3 years apart from the twins or the age. Uh, the homeschooling, I realized something. I'm a trained teacher, and I
Right.
realized something that, and of course, I got a lot of critique always because people say, oh, children have to socialize and blah 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 blah, all those things, and
Yeah,
when you
yeah,
homeschool, you realize that it's all these things, it's not relevant. But anyway, what I realized while homeschooling was that I was not able to give my children everything a school could give them. But on the other hand, a school is also not able to give them what I was giving them. And I think
yeah.
for me, what after the whole time and even now that I see it now, um, is knowledge is something you can always uh, gain. You can always study, and knowledge is just, it's there. You just have to go and get it. But you have to teach your children to want to get it,
Mm,
and to work to get it. And I think if I think even if you don't give them, if you can't teach them certain subjects very well, if you can teach them to the work ethic, or if you can install in them the work ethic and the eagerness to learn, then really you don't that's really what they need. And and this is I as I grow older, I can see exactly how they used to work in the school, is how they approach life as well. And the one thing that I feel very grateful for, and I think you will understand this, what I'm saying, and I think many parents will, is you get to learn, you get to know your child on a totally different level than being a parent. A parent, you know them, but when you start teaching them, you learn a totally different part of your child. And I feel very privileged that I could. And I think many parents now in lockdown have that same privilege, to get to know them on that level.
Yeah, absolutely right. You've summed it up perfectly, and it's been a wonderful time from that perspective. And I don't actually, as I was saying, how would you have used the time if I didn't have to teach them? I felt, actually, do you know what? I didn't miss doing any of that because I was with them and I was helping
Yeah.
them and experiencing them in a different way. It's just exactly as you said. It's a
And
fascinating
I think,
process.
yeah, I think parents will understand. I think as you will see, as you grow, as they grow older, you will see how they still young, but when they out and independent and in life, you will see what you've discovered from them in this time. You will see this exactly how they approach life, and I think it's wonderful. I think parents now complain, but I think they will in years to come, they will look back and they would really treasure these times. It's also true that in homeschooling there are periods where you just think, my God, is this heaven? My children are so wonderful and they're so clever.
Yeah,
And then there are days where you think, what the
I
hell?
know exactly. Why are we doing this?
What?
Yeah, I
Where
know.
can
It's
I drop
mad.
them off? So no, I understand that completely. So it's never
Yeah.
like this. It's
Yeah.
always this and this. Yeah.
That's just being a parent generally, isn't it? But yes, it has been magnified by teaching them as well. It's good. I mean, they're
Yeah.
they're, they're great. I think they've really enjoyed it, and I think with
Mm.
twins, as you know, it's a very different dynamic than if I'd
Oh,
just been
totally.
teaching you
Yeah.
one of them, because that might have
Yeah.
been way too intense. Because they have each other,
Exactly.
it's
Yeah.
it's kind of different. They
Yeah.
feed off each other, they fight, they argue, they
Mm.
discuss, they
Mm.
resolve. There's all of that going on. It's
Yeah.
been fascinating to watch.
Yeah. Well, I must say also one thing that I do regret, and that is not giving them enough free time. Because I think we think now in this year, oh, they have to do this and they have to do maths and they have. But if we're going to look in this year in a spectrum of a lifetime,
Yeah,
say 80 years old, and you think 1 year, just 1 year would not have made, if one day we didn't do school, one day I just let them really, I'm not saying stay in bed, but I'm just
yeah.
explore something, or just
Go outside and look at bugs. Do anything.
something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
That's the only thing I regret, that I was like this real, I had this very strict routine, because I was always I got inspected as well every year, but I was always conscious of it, that people don't think I'm just this free, away with the fairies person,
of
that
course.
the
Yeah,
children just but I do regret it, really. I think it's with everything, and it's also, I think, with music as well. You need you need to just sometimes just have time, or just chill, or just figure it out for yourself,
Yeah,
and not have somebody tell you how to do it or what to do. And yeah, I think sometimes that's also a thing.
it
But
is. It's
listen,
really
it was
important, I think.
it was
Yeah.
so wonderful to talk to you.
Oh, it's great to talk to you. Thank you for
So
getting in touch. So
inspirational.
lovely.
I'm so fascinated by this project of yours. Can you send me a link or something? Can I put a link?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I made a little film which I will send you. I'll send a link
Okay.
to that, which
Yeah.
shows you a little bit of what it's about. It's all
Okay.
about Mesopotamian flood mythology,
Okay. Okay.
rising
Yeah.
sea levels, and
Yeah.
also the formation of the coast from the Storegga slide with the cataclysmic tsunami that happened several thousand years ago,
Mm.
which separated Britain from Europe physically.
Oh,
So there's
okay.
a bit
Yeah.
of little political thing going on there as well. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
no, I will. I'll send you
Yeah.
a link to the film. Then
And
you'll be.
I've recorded this. Would you mind if I share this interview?
I don't mind at all. I don't think I
Okay.
said anything particularly stupid. I'm sure I did,
Okay. No,
but it's.
not at all. I'm the one. I'm the one you should be worried about.
Well, I mean, as long as we're both on cloud nine, it's fine, isn't it? It's, it's all going to be okay.
I've got three very realistic children, and they tell me to get down. But I said, tell them it's lovely up
Okay.
here.
Yeah, come
I'm
and join
fine
us.
because
Come and
I'm
join
enjoying
us.
myself.
That's good.
Well, whenever you are in Vienna again, please
Fingers
write to
crossed.
me, and I would so love to meet you in person,
That
and
would
we
be
go for a
great.
coffee. Yeah.
That would be perfect in one of Vienna's
Okay.
many coffee houses.
Yeah, yeah,
Amazing.
yeah, yeah.
Well,
That's
good
yeah.
luck with the rest of your project. I mean, it sounds
Thank
fascinating, this what you're doing, and I've really enjoyed looking at all the photos too.
Oh, thank you
And
so
it is
much.
quite
Yeah.
different to the ones that you've taken of the street musicians, and then suddenly that you you have these people transposed into dangling out of windows and things. There's quite an
Yeah,
interesting contrast there.
but the idea was that I didn't zoom in. The idea was that I didn't use a different lens. I used one lens for everything, and I used the lens that I do my street photography with,
Ah, okay.
because it was actually the fact that I couldn't do street photography anymore that made me focus on the windows, because I didn't see people in the street during lockdown. And so I was thinking, where are the people? And I started looking up, and saw people in the windows. And this is what, it's a long story, but it started off being that. And so I decided, when I take people's pictures, I wanted to show the view from the street. And this is why I don't zoom in. So when somebody's on the fourth floor, of course they're not that visible than on the first floor.
Yeah,
But that's the
yeah,
idea, is
yeah,
that this is how it is, that is, some
yeah.
people
And
are
it
up
just
there
gives
and
that a
some,
greater
yeah,
sense of separation. You feel that this is,
exactly,
yeah,
exactly, yeah.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so yeah, that was the point behind it.
yeah.
There are many hidden little things about the project, but anyway, I'll write about it. I thought I'll write about it, and
Yes,
also about what I've learned from the artists, or what my thought processes were, during the
yeah,
time that I went from one to the other, um, and at night when I had talked to somebody and something, went triggered my mind. So I thought it would be a good idea to write about it, because I think for people to also have the insight. I feel very strongly about um, that artists should be recognized and valued, and and this is what it's all about. Yeah. But thank you
Amazing.
so
No,
much, and
great.
have a lovely
Oh, it's been
evening.
a pleasure. And
Okay.
you.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.